Welcome to the Pocket Size PR podcast, the podcast where communications professionals share pocket-sized portions of PR wisdom. I'm really excited to be welcomed by Jane Peverley today. Jane is Hayes Travel Group Head of Communications. And as always, I am Charlotte Nichols, owner of Harvey and Hugo. So Jane, how do you define PR?
Good morning. Thank you. I'm really delighted to be here. So PR, I think, is, communications as well as what we do. We bring the inside out of an organisation, and we also need to keep an eye on the outside and bring that in. I would have said that's the key thing. It's all about reputation, managing reputation, nurturing it, protecting it. Growing, it's about reputation.
Absolutely. And at the heart of reputation are values. Just how important are values to Hayes?
Oh my goodness, they run through everything. You come to organizations and they talk about their values, and they're great. They help you make decisions. At Hayes Travel, they are absolutely embedded. I've never worked anywhere where they are more embedded, and they are the foundation for everything. Everyone knows what they are. They can recite them, and they run through from performance reviews to, how you assess a project. And the apprentices from joining, they are really led to understand what the values are and how important they are.
That is critical.
Yeah.
Often forgotten as well.
It really, and it just makes everything different because it means that, Hayes Travel's grown a lot, particularly since 2019 when it brought in Thomas Cook, acquired all of the Thomas Cook branches, all of those employees. And, the business changed overnight, but it still keeps the same family feel because of those values. All of those new colleagues joined and learned the values, and that's the way that Hayes Travel works. And it's a family business, and they really did have a crucial part to play and continue to in making sure that still stands.
Yes, goodness, if there was ever a test of how strong your values are, it is like acquiring another massive
just
company.
Before a pandemic. Yeah.
Yes, and just to add that in, just before a pandemic. Wow, that really truly means that the values have stood the test of time and continue to do so. So how do you communicate these values both internally and externally?
They run through everything internally in terms of how we, like as I say, performance reviews. We have an internal an intranet called the Hub. They're in that. They talked about in team meetings, in branches. Everyone has their team meetings in the mornings. They run through training. The sort of when you begin your induction training, other training that's Hayes Travel is very committed to learning and development, so they run through that. And then externally, we talk about them all the time. Dame Irene Hayes talks about them at a conference or when she's doing interviews. They run through what we do in terms of our, the Hayes Travel Foundation. So they're just part of that conversation that happens constantly.
Which is important. And, Dame Irene is such an excellent ambassador. A lot of activity these days is focused on digital. People almost forget that you actually have to step into the real world and embody your values too. And I've seen her speak and it's amazing. So, yeah. And your team now is about 4,500 team members.
Not in my team, but yes,
Okay.
that would be quite. That would be quite something.
Yes, absolutely.
No, yes, about 4.5. It's possibly a little bit high now, but yes, about 4,500 colleagues all across the UK, and that's a combination of retail colleagues in branches working as agents or in foreign exchange, and in head office. Supporting our independence group members or our personal travel consultants working at home. So in functions like finance and marketing and everything else. So it's about 4,500. So it's significant size.
Wow. And with that kind of size of team, obviously your team will be smaller as well. Do you outsource any kind of PR activity or any other comms activity?
We don't currently. I mean, obviously we have a media database and media monitoring, all of those things, but we don't outsource anyone to do any projects or campaign work. It's not really the Hayes Travel way. We tend to do things in house, and then it keeps the consistency, and it means that the understanding of what it is we're doing
Hmm.
is solid. That's not to say we never will or would. It's just that we don't right now.
Yes, and that makes sense. Taking it back to the values, making sure they are so strong. Yes, which obviously outsourced agencies can gather the information, but if they're living it, breathing every day, that makes sense. Um, and maybe addressing a misconception here, but the travel industry is often perceived as glamorous. Is that so?
Yes, it is, of course, but not so much when you're in the comms side. So I spend a lot of my time at my desk, sharing messages, talking to people, gathering their stories, working with senior colleagues to create campaigns or work on strategic work or support colleagues with tricky questions because that's what comms is for, right? Everyone comes to you with those things.
Mm-hmm.
um, so no, I don't get to go out and do the real glamorous stuff, but it does happen. Really, the agents are the ones who do the glamorous fam trips. They go on cruises and go and test out hotels in fabulous locations because they need to have experienced that to be able to share that with their customers and give them really great advice and guidance. So it's more important for them. But I mean, if anyone's watching, they want to send me on a very glamorous trip, then obviously I'd be delighted to do that and write about it for them.
Absolutely. I think that's very important, Jane. Yeah, I'm all
Yeah.
for that. And so, what role does equality, diversity, and inclusion play in your day to day work?
Oh, I mean, for me, it's everything really. I mean, in previous roles, it's been very, very important, and it's something that we are focusing on really very much at the moment. The world now, we have to stand up. We can't stand by.
Hmm.
We have to stand up, and it's important in comms that we help people to know the language to use because it can be tricky and confusing. So
Agree.
we have to help with that. We have to show that it's okay to ask questions, and really to really bring to life what the lived experience is for our colleagues who perhaps, for whether it's cultural, sexual, neurodivergent,
Hmm.
their experience is different, and we need to make sure everyone feels they belong. So adapting, and what I've found though is often by adapting how you communicate to make it more accessible, it makes it easier for everyone. It's just the best way of doing things.
Definitely. It's difficult though, isn't it? Because there are, like you said,
Mm.
so many different audiences communicating to another different audience. It's
Mhm.
almost has to be personalized to really have an effect, I feel.
It does, and I think it changes constantly.
Hmm.
We have to stay on it. Things you always have to learn in this role, and you always have to stay on top of what's happening, what people are saying, how things are perceived, because it does shift, and we have to adapt accordingly, both to reach our audiences. We have to reflect the audiences and our customers, and everything like that. But also to make sure that what we're sharing is current and best practice.
Definitely. And you mentioned the importance of the language that you use. That's so powerful. One wrong word that could almost change into cause a PR disaster, especially when you are at such a kind of a large company with a high public profile. It's quite a responsibility, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean the risk that comes is from saying the wrong thing. That, like I said at the beginning, it's all about reputation, and that's what we're here to do is to assess, to
Hmm.
ask the tricky questions, to horizon scan, and to make sure that in terms of our own values that we're bringing, as I said, the outside in. So
Hmm.
if in making sure that as organizations we are doing the right thing. And that's one of the things about Haze Travel, which is brilliant, is you can bring your personality to work. Is encouraged, and bring things which are important to the outside world, and to you personally in, and say we need to be looking at this, and that's encouraged.
I really like that approach. And I loved when you said you have to stand up, you can't stand by. That's so important. So many, I don't know, large corporates have got away for so long of just kind of almost standing by. We're not going to say anything because then it means we're not kind of any part to blame. However, you have to stand up.
Yeah, completely. And not saying anything is still a choice. You know, it's not enough anymore. It, it, it's particularly in incident comms, things like that, or when we're not saying anything, you know, ignoring it won't go away. You have to say something, but you have to trust your comms people to help you say the right thing.
Yes, yeah.
But, you know, and that's not that they have all the answers, you know, but they will talk to other people. They'll take guidance from leadership team or from, you know, people involved on the ground, but they will help you say the right thing.
Yeah. And do you think sometimes often people know kind of what to say, but not potentially how to say it?
Yes, I think that's true. And, you know, it's particularly, as I said before, the right words, or, you know, they want to be empathetic, and I think there's a real fear, particularly with media, that they'll be caught out.
Yeah.
Oh, they'll ask me a tricky question. And, you know, understandably, if you're going on, I don't know, the Today program or something like that, then, and you're a politician, yes, that's probably will happen or should happen. That's absolutely what they're there to do, is to get the answers for the readers and listeners. But most of the time, you know, the audience, they want you to do well, and I do encourage people, you know, the people I work with, to do interviews, and, you know, I'll have a conversation with them in local branches. If branch opens or they do something, we have a great scheme where all of our branches receive money through the local community partnership to support charities local to their community. So and it's great, and the media want to talk about that. So that is a lovely example of them, you know, going on the local radio, talking about what they've done, the money they've raised, or how they've supported a local charity. No one's trying to catch you out there, you know, so they, you know, they can't really say the wrong thing, but we do have a chat, you know, that's part of our role, is to help people prepare.
Almost put their mind at ease a little bit. Absolutely. And so how do you monitor your communications efforts at Hayes Travel?
So we have a media monitoring a database, you know, that captures everything. And, you know, what I'm really looking for is, it's not so much the volume, it's about the sentiment, it's the reach, making sure we're in the right places. You know, we're not just sending out wallpaper these days. You know, you want to hit the right audience with what you're saying. That the quality rather than quantity, I would have said. So it's, you know, I have a small team. You know, it's not going to be a huge amount of coverage, but what we get is about having an impact.
Absolutely. And obviously it has to be consistent, but rather than consistently sending out, as you call it, wallpaper, it's not going to stand out. I'd rather people send out fewer quality releases, and that word sentiment, that's so important as well. Do you monitor sentiment?
Not currently, but we do. I mean, you can do it easily, but the thing is, the AI algorithms that do these things, they kind of often get it wrong. So yeah, it does monitor it. You know, oh, it's negative, it's positive, but a lot of the time you have to go in and,
I agree,
do it yourself. And I have to be honest, I don't really have the time to do that.
No, it's you know, it's something. Yes, there's loads of tools out there saying that they monitor sentiment, but I do question the accuracy, unless, and you know, even with surveys and things like that, there's a certain element of bias in the fact that you're there with a survey in the first place, and people often answer based on how they'd like to be perceived rather than their true honest feelings about a brand. So yeah, I'm hoping AI or technological revolutions will enhance that aspect of media monitoring, but at the minute I don't feel it's quite there.
I think it will. It's bound to. It will learn. You know, it's getting better. But right now it's not great, and it's because of the nuance. You know, it could be an awful situation which it will perceive as negative, but if you've handled that with care and empathy and clarity and consistency and all those other things that we have to do, then that's still positive. You know,
yes,
and the messages reach the audience. You know, that's still positive.
Absolutely, I agree. And turning it around like a mini crisis or something that's gone wrong can often be the start of forming a really strong relationship moving forward. So yeah, it's got a lot more to understand about human, as we do always, about the human brain and the mindset.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Okay, so the question we're going to end on, Jane, is what's your top PR tip?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say believe in yourself. You know, we do a really complex job, and we have to understand nuance. We have to make decisions. We have to listen and often tell truth to power at a very senior level. And we have to adapt what we are advised and learn for our audiences across multiple channels. And done well, comms is a skill, and it takes a lifetime to keep, you've got to keep learning and keep developing. And, a lot of people will see PR and comms as, oh, well, that happens over there. It's easy. You just chat to people, talk to a few press, anyone could do it. And the reality is they can't. And you know that because when things go wrong, it's you they come to help you sort that out. And so, yeah, I have workplaces where the PR or the comms team or the press office, they were a little bit hard done by, and they just given stuff to send out, SOS, send out stuff. And, it's about building their confidence, helping them understand that there is a strategy behind what we do. We're not just sending out things. There has to be a narrative and a strategy that sits behind that, and a purpose. And what you're trying to achieve is have an impact towards those key messages, or the foundations of the organization that you're there to represent. So yeah, believe in yourself, because you're doing a cracking job.
I love that answer. Thank you so much, Jane.
Thank you. It's been lovely to be on. Thank you for asking me.
Nobody can do business with you if they don't know about your business. But nobody will do business with you if your business's brand doesn't have trust and credibility. PR is the secret sauce in the marketing mix that can help achieve this and so much more. If you're interested in how PR can help your business, contact Harvey and Hugo, harveyandhugo.com, or email info@harveyandhugo.com.
Podcast.